Hey everybody, Tucker here from Electric Cycle Rider. It's getting towards the end of the year, and I've been super fortunate this year to ride a ton of electric dirt bikes and motorcycles. So I wanted to put together a video highlighting what I think are the top 5 best electric dirt bikes and motorcycles of the year. I have seen some of these videos out there highlighting top 5 or top 10 electric bikes, and my problem with it is that there isn't an actual human telling you why they're the best. It's just a voiceover going through specifications, and to me that doesn't really tell you whether a bike is good or not. It's just showing you what the bike is. So because I've been able to ride a ton of these, I'm going to tell you what I think are the best. Now, the best is going to differ from person to person, and I respect that, so I'd like to put the bikes into 5 different categories and tell you what I think are the best for those 5 categories. The 5 categories are: number 1, budget and affordability. Number 2 is performance, specifically off-road performance. Number 3 is the best in technical terrain. 4 is going to be quietest. And 5 is the best street-legal electric dual sport dirt bike. Now, all of these bikes that I'm going to mention are electric bikes that you can buy in the United States. We've had some companies come and go, and unfortunately some of these bikes you can't buy anymore. So the bikes that I'm going to talk about in this video are bikes that you can actually go out and purchase. Alright, so number 1 is budget and affordability, and that's a question that I get asked a lot. Is I've got a super limited budget, what's the best electric dirt bike I can get for the least amount of money? And what I always say is get a Sur-Ron X. I think that that is the best bang for your buck. If you've got a super limited budget, you're not going to find a better bike than the Sur-Ron X. Now, at the time of recording this video, the Sur-Ron X is $3,600 from Lunicycle. I respect that $3,600 is still a lot of money for a lot of people, so I'm not trying to say that that is cheap, but in the grand world of not only just motorcycles or dirt bikes, even mountain bikes, I mean, $3,600 is a really hard number to get to if you're trying to buy any new bike. Now, what do you get for $3,600? Well, the Sur-Ron X is more of a mountain bike moto kind of hybrid. I say mountain bike not in the sense that you pedal it, because it's pegs and it's a throttle operated bike, but it comes with a mountain bike style fork and shock, handlebars, stem, brakes. There's a lot of parts on the bike that make it super lightweight, but make it feel and ride a lot like a mountain bike. It's a 6 kilowatt motor, so it's got, for its weight, a decent amount of power. It's not going to rip your arms off by any stretch of the imagination. If you've been riding a lot, it's going to be a pretty mild bike, but it's a super fun bike, and in the right category, I think it's a really, really fun bike to own. If you come from a moto background and you're used to riding a lot of rough terrain, you know, this bike is going to feel a bit undergunned in those situations, but if you like really bermy, kind of flowy trails, jump trails, that type of thing, really mountain bike style riding, these bikes are super fun for that. They weigh about 115 pounds, so they're really manageable to ride. I wouldn't go out and replace my dirt bike with it, but if you're looking for the most affordable option to get you on an electric dirt bike, I would suggest the Sur-Ron X. Now, I will mention that you can also get a Segway X260, which is basically the same thing as a Sur-Ron X, but at the time of recording this video, that is a bit more expensive than the Sur-Ron X. So I am going to lean towards the Sur-Ron X for this category because it is the most affordable option within that genre. Now, with the Sur-Ron X, I will say you do get what you pay for. I think it's built really well. I've been impressed with the quality of the bike, but there are some shortcomings on some of the components of the bike. It's clear that they've been able to make the bike affordable by offering some parts on it that are not the highest end components, but for most applications it's going to work really well. I know a lot of people have a lot of fun on them. There's a reason why it's such a popular bike, and I think that its best attribute is its price, because it's allowing a lot of people to get onto a dirt bike, especially an electric dirt bike, for super cheap. So if you're looking for a bike that's super fun, really low cost of entry, then I would highly recommend the Sur-Ron X. All right, moving on to number 2, which is performance, and specifically off-road performance. The bike that I will always take out off-road when given the option is my KTM Freeride E-XC. I think that that bike excels when the going gets rough compared to all the other dirt bikes. It feels most like a traditional dirt bike to me. And that's saying a lot because it really doesn't feel like a traditional dirt bike in a lot of ways, but it feels closest to a traditional dirt bike that I've found next to the Alta. You know, I will say that the Alta would beat KTM in this category, but you can't go out and buy an Alta today, but you can go out and buy a KTM Freeride E-XC. So what you get with the KTM Freeride E-XC is a 18 kilowatt peak output motor. It's got a lot of really good usable power. The throttle delivery is really smooth. It doesn't feel underwhelming. It doesn't feel overwhelming. Everything feels really planted. It's just what you would expect from something coming from the brand KTM. You're going to get a battery life on the KTM Freeride of, depending on how you ride it, I would say if you're riding it really aggressively, somewhere around 20 miles. If you're not riding it as hard, more like 30 or a little bit more than 30 miles off-road on that bike. It's also has a removable battery. It's not as easy to remove as a bike like the Sur-Ron, but it's basically 4 bolts. You can pop the battery right out. If you want to buy a second battery, you can pop a new one in. It comes with the WP Explore fork. It's a modern geometry. It does feel a tiny bit smaller than a full-size dirt bike, but I like the way that the bike feels. The bike weighs about 250 pounds. But don't be afraid of that 250 pounds because although it sounds like a lot and although it is indeed heavier on the scale than a traditional modern dirt bike, it rides so much lighter because there is no gyroscopic inertia coming from the motor that's going to make the bike feel heavy in corners. It feels extremely light. It feels way lighter than a two-stroke when you actually ride it, when you get it moving. It's just heavier on the scale. Now the KTM Freeride E-XC has been improved over the years. The older 2017 model that I had was not of the same caliber as this new 2020. The 2020 has better battery life, a little bit more power, better suspension, better brakes, and I know it's expensive. It's coming in at an MSRP of $10,500, so it's definitely an expensive bike, but you get the quality that you would expect from KTM, and overall it's a super impressive bike and definitely the best off-road that I have ridden this year. Alright, moving on to technical terrain. So a lot of you guys watching this are really good off-road riders. You like really technical terrain. A lot of you request to see hill climbs and rock garden obstacles and that type of thing. So if you're of that category, you like going through really slow, rough, technical terrain, the bike that I would recommend the most is the Electric Motion Race. The Race is a bit of a trial style bike, so definitely geared more towards slower speeds, but it has amazing traction and amazing capabilities when the going gets rough. This bike really impressed me when I rode it. I think the coolest thing that this bike offers is the fact that it has a clutch on it. You can disengage the power of the bike with that clutch, and to me, that's something that I think every electric dirt bike should have. It makes riding in technical terrain so much better. Like for instance, if I'm going up a super technical hill climb that's really rocky and really slow going, on my KTM Freeride, I always wish that I had the clutch of the Electric Motion Race. The reason I wouldn't put it in the performance category, so to speak, is it's not a high-speed bike. It's definitely more of a trials bike. It's got trials tires, trials suspension, that really low cutout without the seat, and high bars, so it is basically an electric trials bike. But what it does really well is the slow technical riding. It just cannot be beat. I would put my money on that over the KTM Freeride in extreme technical terrain, and that bike works really well. So the Race has a peak power output of 11 kilowatts. Depending on how you ride it, it's got a range similar to the KTM Freeride of between 20 and 30 miles. It weighs in at 165 pounds. It's got a top speed of about 45 miles per hour. And the price of the Electric Motion comes in at approximately $10,500. Another thing I have to point out is that Electric Motion came out with the Escape R, which is more of a street legal bike with a higher seat than the Race, and it also has a clutch. But I rode the Escape off-road, and if I'm going to go for extreme technical terrain, then I'm still going to go with the Race just because it's just built for that. But a solid runner-up would be the Escape R because you also get that clutch. Now, the Electric Motion is a really torquey bike. It's got a lot of snap off the throttle, not a ton of high speed. It's not meant for going high speeds, but it has a lot of torque. You can ramp up the motor, you can pop the clutch, you can get up and over things really easy. So if you're somebody that's really into off-road, technical terrain, kind of slower moving, hard enduro style riding, and you're looking for an electric bike, my best recommendation would be the Race from Electric Motion. All right, now on to the Quietest. I know that a lot of you guys are interested in electric motorcycles or dirt bikes because of the quiet factor that you get from an electric dirt bike. And to be totally honest, they're not all that quiet. Some of them are kind of loud. They have a different pitch to them. I don't think that they're as loud as a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke, but some of the high-performance bikes are not super quiet. You're still definitely going to be heard on it. But there are a few really quiet dirt bikes, and I want to break this category into two different sections because I've ridden a handful of really quiet electric dirt bikes. Some are much quieter than others because of the style of motor that they use. So I'm going to break it into hub drive and mid-drive motors. Hub drive motors are extremely quiet by nature, whereas a mid-drive motor is what a lot of people are after and can sometimes not be that quiet. Before I digress too much, the quietest electric dirt bike that I've ridden this year has been the Ubco 2x2. Now, the Ubco 2x2 is a dual hub drive bike, so it powers the front and the rear wheel. And even with those two motors, it is extremely quiet. There's no chain and sprockets making a lot of noise. I will point out that it is not a super high performance off-road dirt bike. It is very off-road capable, but if you're looking to sneak around the woods and just be really stealth quiet, the Ubco 2x2 is definitely the quietest electric bike that I have ridden this year. So the Ubco 2x2 weighs about 128 pounds. Each of the brushless hub drive motors puts out 1 kilowatt. It's got a top speed of 30 miles per hour and has a range of about 30 to 60 miles depending on how you're riding the bike. And at the time of recording this, the Ubco 2x2 cost about $6,999. Now, the quietest mid-drive motor that I've ridden is also going to go to the Electric Motion bikes. Those bikes are all extremely quiet. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know what they've done to make those bikes quiet, but they are by far the quietest mid-drive motor bike that I have ridden. But the Electric Motion definitely takes the cake for the quietest mid-drive electric motor bike that I have ridden this year. The Sur-Ron X is a pretty quiet electric bike, especially with the O-ring chain that it comes with stock. I know that you can put a belt drive on the Sur-Ron X, which would make it extremely quiet as well, but if you're riding it off-road a lot, the belt drive is kind of sketchy. You could get a rock or a pebble inside of that belt and break that pretty easily. But the Electric Motion bikes put out a very small amount of noise, and they're super enjoyable to ride for that reason. There's not a big ringing in your ears, and that's the beauty of some of these electric bikes, is they're really quiet. So the quietest bike is going to be the Ubco 2x2 for a hub drive motor, and if you want a mid-drive motor, the Electric Motion bikes, really any bike in their line, is going to be super quiet. All right, last but not least, we're talking about the best electric dual sport bike. So one that can go off-road, but is street legal, so you can ride it on the street as well. Now, this is a bike that I've ridden a bunch, but I have not put out a video about it yet, and it's the Zero FX. I think this bike has got to be probably one of the first electric dirt bikes that ever came out. It's been upgraded over the years and gotten better and better, but it is a bike that you can ride on the street and also has off-road capabilities as well. So the Zero FX has two different battery options for it. The lower-end battery option costs just over $9,000, whereas the bike with the higher-end battery costs just over $11,000. The smaller battery has a weight of about 246 pounds and a claimed range of about 46 miles. Both have the same top speed of 85 miles per hour, and the bigger battery has a weight of 289 pounds with a much higher range of a claimed 91 miles. Now, a lot of folks compare the KTM Freeride E-XC to the Zero FX. Now, the Zero FX is not going to be as good as the KTM Freeride off-road, but it is street legal, so you can ride to the trail. It's not a super light bike, but it's just like the KTM Freeride in that it rides a lot lighter than it sits on the scale. And the cool thing about it is you can ride it on the road, you can ride it off-road. It has decent power. It's a cool looking bike. It's got good range. So for those reasons, I'm going with the Zero FX as the best electric dual sport street legal dirt bike that you can buy. All right, so that about does it. Those are my top 5 best electric dirt bikes of the year. Those are the ones that if you were to reach out to me and ask me which electric dirt bike I think you should get, those are going to be the ones that I put on the list, and for those specific reasons. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, I'm sure a ton of you guys own these bikes and probably have your own opinions on them. So feel free to leave a note in the comments. Let me know what you think. And yeah, Happy New Year, and thanks for watching.